Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I'm Jake Milham, joined as always by the man from the South, or the mouth from the South, as they call him, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how are you feeling today?
I don't know that I consider myself from the South.
You reside in the South. Maybe I should say
Barely.
hailing from the South. He is the mouth of the South, Jeremy Greco.
I don't eat grits. I don't drink sweet tea. I don't think the Southerners want me.
Wow. You're a damn Yankee then, aren't you?
I don't know if can I just be like from not any specific region?
I'm an American. All right.
Do I have to be American? Can I just be human?
Yes. Why not both? Why not?
I mean, I'm okay if I could be a Martian. That was a thing I absolutely used to tell people when I was, there's this idea in Japanese culture of chunibyo, which is just like you make up some kind of crazy story that you're like actually a demon or a magical wizard or all this stuff. So my chunibyo when I was a tween, early teenager, was that I was actually a Martian, and I would just tell people I'm a Martian, and I would insist that it was true.
If you say it enough, then it becomes the truth. Okay.
Well, and it's certainly what some people believe.
True. Very, very true. All right, listen. Thank you for the lesson there, Jeremy. But we are here to talk about Kansas City Royals baseball. And RoyalsReview.com does a pretty damn good job of that, at least during the season. During the offseason, you might have some nonsensical movie reviews and things to pass the time. Jeremy
Listen, during the offseason, they still talk good Royals baseball.
They do.
They just also talk about other stuff.
Sonic the Hedgehog too. All right. But they, all in all, they're the folks who make this podcast happen. A great team of folks over there at Royals Review. So make sure to check out the good work that goes on the site over there. Support them on social media at X, on Threads, on Facebook, whatever your preferred profile is. There's probably Royals Review there for you. And honestly, most of this stuff you would have known about much earlier if you were following along with Royals Review. So, come on, what are you doing? You're missing out if you ain't following them already. All right, Jeremy. So I was talking about this before we started recording. It's been a while since we actually did the transactions recap because the transactions have been few and far between this season, it seems like. Last year we were calling up a bunch of folks, sending them down, designating them for assignment. Well, I do want to say there was a handful of transactions this week, so I feel like we need to talk about them real quick. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
All righty, so let's go ahead and kick it off with a minor trade. Someone that I feel like a lot of Royals fans went, who? Who did we trade away, and why do I care? The Royals traded away right-handed pitcher Jonah Dipoto to the Philadelphia Phillies for cash. And yes, he is the son of the Seattle Mariners general manager, that Dipoto. He was pitching in AAA Omaha, not stellar stats, but definitely like an organizational depth kind of arm. Had some good flashes in 2023, but just wasn't gaining any ground. And Jeremy, you've talked about it several times. That Omaha bullpen is pretty damn competitive. So they're opening up spots at least, right?
Yeah. They were wanting to promote some guys from AA. I know Chandler Champlain came up. So they're probably looking to promote some more guys. And Dipoto was not going to get a shot at the big league level. So if somebody else wants him, then send him over there, get some cash, and keep, shuffling through guys and moving them around as you need to.
Yep, very true. A couple of, I don't want to call them corresponding moves, but a couple of moves that maybe were
happened
made.
Also.
Yeah, happened also in the pitching staff in Omaha. It's kind of, truth be told, I'll admit a knowledge gap here. Preston Farr knows so much more about the roster rules and the processes and the transactions on the minor league level. So he's been doing a great job of breaking this down at Royals Minors on X. So go follow him. He's been keeping close tabs on this. But the very next day, the Royals sent left-handed pitcher Chris Bubich. They upped his rehab assignment to the Omaha Storm Chasers, and he is making a start tonight against
Whoa.
the who I forget who they're. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league team, I do believe. Oh nope, I am very very wrong. Am I? Am I wrong? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
They're
You're the
playing
one
against
looking.
they're playing against the Indianapolis Indians. So, yes, they are the Pittsburgh Pirates AAA
Yeah,
team. My
I was
bad.
like, I think that's the Pittsburgh Pirates team.
Yep, that's my bad. So we'll
No, I would like to know why Indianapolis minor league team gets to keep that nickname when the major league teams finally said, yeah, we shouldn't do that anymore.
well, it's you know
Of course,
what?
there's also a lot of college teams running around with Native American nicknames still too,
Yeah,
and our very own Kansas City Chiefs. I just come on, y'all. It's not that hard. Just change your name. It's okay.
it is okay, and you know what? Just local pressure will do wonders. So if they're not feeling that pressure from up higher or from the local fan base, then that's probably why they're not doing it. But yeah, I agree. At least their what's the word for this? At least their imagery isn't racially charged, if you will. I get there's a lot of
Yeah,
history behind Chief Wahoo, but he just did not age well.
no.
Yeah,
They're getting rid of the worst offenders, so
yeah,
it's progress.
it is.
I just wish everybody else would just be like, how about I get ahead of this one for once instead of waiting until I have all kinds of pressure on me? But
Yeah.
I'm never going to win that battle, probably.
Well, that just makes too much sense, doesn't it, Jeremy? But all in all, Wednesday night he is making his first start at the AAA level this year. Unfortunately, his last outing on Friday, we talked about his first outing in AA. His second one did not go very well at all. Thanks to Nicholas Batters of the AAA Omaha Storm Chasers, he has some great media notes, so I greatly appreciate what he does. He made his second rehab start with Northwest Arkansas. He allowed a walk and an RBI double in the first inning. And then in the second inning, a single, two doubles, and a two-run homer plated four more runs that inning. He did not come out for the third inning. All in all, he's 0-2 so far this season with a 6.48 ERA. Of course, that is only 8 1/3 innings pitched, so small sample size, right, Jeremy?
I got distracted. Who are we talking
We're
about?
talking about Chris Bubich. We're talking about
What?
your guy.
What? No,
Yes.
he was pitching good. You must be looking at the wrong stats.
No, I'm looking at the right
Chris
guy.
Bubich is too good to do that.
Oh, Jeremy.
I was like, you were telling me these stats, and I'm like, that's not Chris Bubich. Who are we talking about now?
Well, here's one stat that sounds more like him: 13 strikeouts to 3 walks. Does that sound like
Yeah,
good Chris
okay.
Bubich? Yeah. So we'll see what he does. The Stanford alum, he kind of. I'm interested to see what happens when his rehab assignment is done. That date is rapidly approaching, but he does still have ML minor league options left. So we might see him at AAA for a little while.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. All right, back to the transactions because there are a couple of, well, one more minor one. Tyler Duffy did pass through waivers. The Royals designated him for assignment last week and cleared through waivers. Nobody wanted him, nobody picked him up, so he was sent down to AAA Omaha and he is joining their bullpen. Just man, the walk to strikeout rate, the like he just wasn't hanging at the major league level, and that's that's okay as long as you move on from him, which they did, right?
Yeah, he had a few good outings to
He
start
did.
things out, and I was counting him as one of the Royals' successes in finding pitching where you wouldn't look for it normally. But it just didn't work out. Maybe he'll be able to bounce back, but definitely definitely need him to really show something if we're going to give him another shot at the big league level now.
Oh, for sure. And there are several different bullpen arms on the 40-man roster and off the 40-man roster who I would like to see up
Exactly.
before him. I like I'm going to hammer this home, Jeremy, so please excuse me and grab the wheel if I get too deep into this. Just looking at this bullpen, it's really impressive. Dan Altavilla, Austin Cox, who is really good, still recovering from that ACL tear. Steven Cruz, another fireballer. Tyler Duffy, who we just talked about. Will Klein, John McMillan, Walter Pennington, Colin Selby, Evan Sisk, and Anthony Veneziano. Those are your bullpen guys in Omaha. That sounds like a pretty good lineup to me.
Yeah, those would all, I think almost every one of those would have been better than the bullpen the Royals had at this time last year.
Yeesh. Yeah, that's a great point. I don't want to go back and see some of those names that were in the bullpen this time last year. Oh, that was rough. The big transactions of the week, though, was Nick Lofton waking up in Omaha on Sunday morning and making the flight down to Tampa Bay in time for game time. He was promoted back to the Major League Club, but unfortunately, Michael Massey landed on the 10-day IL, retroactive to May 25th, with a low back ligament sprain. Now, I do want to clarify this. What kept him out to start off the season, unfortunately, was a low back strain.
With a
So,
T.
yes, with a
Now
T.
he's
This
got a
one's with a
sprain
P.
with a P.
Yes, exactly. And he is certainly in pain with a P. So, Jeremy, I know we're going to talk about like some of the team chemistry stuff, but I do want to get your thoughts real quick on like is this a massive red flag from Michael Massey now? I mean, this is the second time in like less than 3 months that we're dealing with this.
So the interesting thing to me about this is after he heard it, the Royals announcers kind of admitted that the Royals knew when they drafted him that he had genetic back issues that were going to probably plague him for his entire career. They've got people working with him on exercises and stuff to do to try and, limit how much that holds him out. But yeah, it does kind of sound like back injuries are going to be a kind of permanent concern for him, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And I
So,
get it. Adam Frazier isn't our favorite guy here, but there are worse platoon options out there. And it is unfortunate that maybe we need to accept the fate and the fact that Michael Massey isn't going to be a 150 game player. You know, he might be one of those guys who you get 110 out of him on a semi healthy year, and that is sad to hear. Truthfully, it is.
yeah, it does actually, it brings that Frazier signing into a different light where the Royals
Yeah.
were bringing him in just because they were like, well, how often can we expect Massey to be in the lineup? The one kind of bright side, I don't know, to this, he did play 129 games last year, so he
Okay.
can do it. But and the other thing I'll say is that Lorenzo Cain was kind of known for his frequent lower body injuries, legs, knees, hips, etc., and eventually found a workout routine that kept him loose and kept him healthy. So fingers crossed, they'll keep working with Massey on this and get that figured out.
Yes, and that's all we can do. Speaking of injuries, I do want to talk about the Vinny Pasquantino play later on, but a quick update on him from Joel Goldberg just right now. Vinny Pasquantino is feeling better today with the bruised leg. He's continuing to receive treatment and hopes to be available off the bench tonight. So that is some good news right there. But before we talk about the play and why Vinny is injured in the first place, these are two very, very important players on a good defensive infield and two like middle of the order bats. It's what they've been recently. I get it, Vinny's kind of cold right now, but he was still slotting in that third spot. And Massey forced his way up the lineup to number 5. So
Yeah.
two very important guys that Quatrero is putting a lot of trust into. Like this has to affect the team chemistry a lot, right?
Yeah, the lineup came out for tonight's game as we're recording this before Wednesday's game, and Adam Frazier is batting cleanup tonight, which has a lot of people upset, and I get it. I don't want Adam Frazier to bat fourth, but the Royals' fourth and fifth best hitters, whichever order you think Vinny and Massey belong in right now. I'm sure most of you are going to say Vinny is at least the fourth best hitter, but the stats probably say Massey's the better hitter, or has been so far this year. I don't think that that's necessarily the way it's going to stay, but that's what it looks like. Anyway, so the fourth and fifth best hitters are out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? This was already a lineup that was pretty shallow. It only went 5 batters deep.
Yeah.
And now it goes 3 batters deep, which means Adam Frazier's batting fourth. Who are you going to put in there? You want MJ Melendez batting fourth? You want Nelson Velasquez, even though he seems to be coming on a little bit lately, batting fourth? Hunter Renfroe? I don't trust any of these guys to bat fourth, so Adam Frazier's as good as anybody, I guess.
Yeah.
Just it's a really unfortunate, and this is going to be I think as we come up with one of these once an episode, this is going to be a test for this team. We said, hey, you don't have a lot of depth. Can you win and when the guys get hurt? Because guys are going to get hurt. Now, hopefully, Massey's only out 10 days. Hopefully, Vinny's only out a couple of days. They also lost Isbell for a couple of days.
Yep.
So, can they've now lost 3 in a row, which is a bummer. Don't get too pressed about it because, even if they get swept by the Twins, they'll still be ahead of them in the standings. They will still be in line for a wild card spot. So, it's not the end of the world. But it's a test to see, can you find a way to win some games without those guys? Can somebody else step up? Hunter Renfroe, Nelson Velasquez need to get hotter than they have been.
Yep.
I know we said, hey, maybe they're coming around, but they got to come around harder and faster if this is going to work out. Or JJ Piccolo needs to go out and get some bats in the lineup. I just actually had an email I was looking at right before we signed on to do this, where they were trying to project where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Pete Alonso were going to get traded this year. So I wouldn't mind having either of those guys in the lineup. I don't know that the Royals can afford them, but I wouldn't complain if they could figure that out.
No, I wouldn't complain at all either. And I do think, Jeremy, that we at some point we will have to devote like a full episode to like a too early trade deadline approach and kind of set the table. So be on the lookout for that, folks. Make sure you follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your respective platform to make sure you never miss one of our episodes. But back to the Twins real quick, Jeremy. Something that really puts this into perspective is the Royals. The Royals have lost 4 of their 5 games against the Twins. It's not a great record against one team, but it's interesting that the Twins account for nearly 20% of the Royals' losses this year. Like, sometimes a team just has your number, and you pray that you don't see them too much during the season, and you pray you don't see them in the postseason. And thankfully, I hope that we don't have too many more games against the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, it feels a little like the Twins and Yankees in the playoffs right now, with the Royals playing the role of the Twins.
Exactly. So I will say this. So I'm not getting too riled up about a 3-game losing streak. I think it's fair to call it a streak now. It's not a skid. It's not a stretch. It's a streak. And last night was the first loss that I was kind of genuinely frustrated with. It was easy to come away from Monday's loss like, well, hey, they were right there. They almost did it. And then the Rays is like, well, they had to get one from us, I guess. So you kind of chalk it up to that. But there were so many self-inflicted wounds on Tuesday. Does that rile you up? Like the Garrett Hampson should have been an error. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
That should have been an error, but it was scored a double.
Nothing's an error anymore.
Well, I will. Yeah. So I will say this, and I can't quote it from anyone except from the source. My wife has Sirius XM in her car, and sometimes when I'm driving her car, I'll toss on MLB radio to see what those talking heads are talking about.
Just toss on the radio.
Just
Toss that
yeah,
radio station on there. It's
yep.
exactly how that. It's lots of tossing happening with your dials.
Lots of tossing. Like I have to throw like old French fries in the back seat at it just to get it to work. It's like a spontaneous combustion radio. Like I have to feed a flame underneath it. I said before we started recording, Jeremy, let's get chaotic. All right, I'm a little chaotic.
Apparently,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought we were already chaotic, and then you're setting things on fire. Stale French fries are everywhere. I don't even know anymore.
All right, I'll reel it in. But their point was this season there has been an unspoken rule of giving outfielders more quote unquote grace when it comes to hard hit balls in the outfield. Which
I feel like it's not just this year, but go on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been a trend in recent years, but they were just talking about this year for some reason. That was just a hustle play that Hampson could have and should have made, and he didn't.
I mean, he was there. He was there.
Yeah,
Right? He didn't have to run hard. He didn't have to dive. He was there. He just had to put his glove in the right spot.
and
I don't know if you could tell from my tone, I'm over the Garrett Hampson experience.
Oh yeah. What really broke the camel's back though was him overrunning a pop out in foul territory. Do you remember that last night?
Oh, I must have missed that one.
Yeah, he was playing left field last night and he overran a pop up. Again, granted, it was against the rail in there with the fans, but I mean, it landed probably a good 5 feet behind him. Like, come on, man! These are some simple things at the major league level.
When I defended him earlier this year, I said he brings speed and positional versatility to this team.
Yep,
and that's why he's valuable at $2 million a year. Here's the thing: positional versatility is supposed to mean that you play all of those positions to a certain level of competence. Otherwise, everyone has positional versatility.
Yep.
If you want to play Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at shortstop, you can. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's going to go well for you, but if you want to, you can. Nothing's stopping you. And if Garrett Hampson can't play the position any better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or anybody else you care to name, then he's not offering true positional versatility. He's also gotten thrown out on the bases like an nincompoop too many times now. I've lost count of how many times that's happened. Your speed means nothing if you don't know how to use it. Your positional versatility means nothing if you just watch the ball go right past your glove for no reason.
Exactly. And I will say this. This is the other side of the coin. According to the stats, he's good at the plate.
Well, depends on what stats you're looking at, right? So he's batting over 300, or he was last time I checked, but he had a BABIP of almost 500.
Yeah.
An expected batting average of below 200. You can miss me with Garrett Hampson can hit takes.
Here, let's see here. Let's pull up some numbers. So that is something that we talked about last time we talked about, or excuse me, I think I was talking on X with maybe it was Josh Kaiser or Jared Perkins about it. I was like, hey, a 30% infield hit rate is not sustainable. So as of right now, listen to this. So his average is 313, a career high. OBP is sitting at 371, which is also a career high. His expected WOBA, which I understand not everyone knows what WOBA is out there. It's the weighted on base average. That's what it stands for.
And it's set to like 300 as average.
Yes. His WOBA right now on the stat line is 336. His expected rate is 230. That is a massive drop.
Yeah.
And we are going to see that drop eventually.
Yeah.
And I can only compare it to Nick Prado of last year. I mean, he was, man, it's like, oh, do we have a first base competition now? And then he showed his true colors and put that stuff to bed all on his own. Garrett Hampson is going to end his time in Kansas City all on his own. He doesn't need our help. He doesn't need any other team's help. He's going to do it all on his own. So we'll see when that happens. Right now, it's a frustrating experiment to watch, I think. Any other thoughts on Garrett?
No, just again, if you don't offer the positional versatility, you don't offer the speed. We all knew your bat is a mirage, or at least most of us did. Then go away. Nick Lofton can be our utility infielder, and at least he's a guy that we think might grow into something. Garrett Hampson's not growing into anything, and the thing that Lofton offers is I think he plays a little bit harder than Hampson.
I think so.
I mean, that fly ball that he missed just looked like lack of effort, really, to me, of like he was not focused. And I can't think of a single time when Nick Lofton didn't look super focused out there. And when the margins are that small, that's something that matters.
And it really is. When that's the difference between winning and losing, which one do you want to do? I want to win. I'll tell you that much. All right. So now that we've talked about Garrett Hampson plenty, Jeremy, I do want to talk about some big baseball news. So one of the big headlines this week was Angel Hernandez is finally going to relieve fans from having to see him calling games behind the plate or calling check swings on Bryce Harper in pivotal games. We don't have to suffer through Angel Hernandez anymore. He is going to retire.
National nightmare is over.
It really is. And you know what? I heard a story on how like his meeting went with MLB officials before he announced this. So apparently they brought him in to talk to him, and he got really worked up, and he stormed out of the room like I am infallible.
He can't throw him out, so he's got to go somewhere.
Exactly. Well, they were talking about like, hey, you are getting a little older. We are worried about your ability to see and think cognitively because we've seen all this, and it is an issue. It's a big issue.
He did that when he was younger. I don't feel like this is an age thing. Don't make this an age thing, guys.
Well, so he took that pretty personally, of course.
Sure. And this is the guy who sued them for racial discrimination. He's going to come back with an age discrimination case now.
Probably so. And then he stormed out of the room. And about 15 minutes later, he came back in after he realized he walked into a broom closet because he's freaking blind. Get him out of baseball.
Sometimes I should just let you go.
No, it is. I'm so. First off, that is not a real story, honey.
Yeah,
honey just asked that.
I get that now.
Well, I don't want to hear from Angel Hernandez later on.
Yeah, maybe setting yourself up for a lawsuit.
Oh no,
we can't afford a lawsuit.
Can't afford it, Angel. Please don't do it. I have this Royals hat on my head. That's about it. But I'm just so relieved to see that he is going to be out of baseball, and this is I rarely wish on the downfall of people, but I think baseball fans everywhere have just been counting the days until Angel Hernandez steps away from Major League Baseball. Like, Jeremy, what was when you first saw this headline? What were your thoughts? What was your reaction?
I was like, oh man, good, about time. Excuse me. It's probably kind of a mutual decision between the two. Obviously, there was a negotiation that was reported between MLB and Angel Hernandez where he got compensated kind of for the rest of the year. I do wonder how much was his decision because he umpired a game and then kind of didn't umpire for a few days and then the negotiations started happening, I think the MLB was just kind of over it.
Yeah.
And was like, listen, retire, we'll pay you, let's all move on. And I think that's for the best of the sport. I will say I did see something that kind of indicated he might only be the 8th worst umpire. Only the 8th worst umpire in MLB.
Yeah.
So might want to look at those other 7 guys too and figure out what the heck is going on with them.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I know I saw a headline that said Rob Manfred said we're not getting automatic balls and strikes in 2025. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but and yeah, at this point, bad umpiring is frustrating, and I'm never going to be one of those people who's like, oh well, it's part of the game. But also sometimes you just got to let it go. The Angel Hernandez made it extremely bad, not just because it was bad calls, but because of the belligerence with which he made them. It was one of the reasons Joe West was one of the worst umpires that we ever saw. So it's and it's funny to me because Angel Hernandez, he as I said, he made the racial discrimination lawsuit because he never got promoted to do any like postseason games. I can't remember if he was a crew chief or if it took him forever to become a crew chief or whatever. But he basically didn't get promotions because he was bad, and he tried to sue because he thought he deserved them, and he lost that lawsuit. But I'll tell you what, Joe West again was not any better, but he did get some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't say that Angel Hernandez didn't have a point.
It's hard to discount that, especially because I think he filed that lawsuit in 2009. Like it was late
2017.
2017?
Yeah. That's what I read.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was much earlier than that.
Nope.
Either way though, I am sure that there are so many stories and there are so many things that went on behind closed doors that we didn't know about, and it is concerning that this was an issue with Angel Hernandez for a decade plus, right? Like this was a long running bit in Major League Baseball about how bad Angel Hernandez is, and now we're looking at guys like CB Buckner, who had a terribly called game that cost the Royals this year alone. But I don't think anyone's going to beat I think it was Angel Hernandez in the Houston Astros game that called like 3 straight balls that were about a foot out of the zone, called them strikes to end the game. Do you remember? Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that one. It's not the first time I've heard of an umpire calling balls out a foot outside the zone a strike for no apparent reason.
True. But yeah, that was let me formulate my words here real quick. I'm always curious what causes umpires to be so untouchable. I don't know if it's a union thing. I don't know if it's a pipeline thing, because Major League Baseball does a good job of trying to foster an umpire pipeline, at least to what they can. They have umpire camps all across the country, multi-day events to help set up these folks on the right path. And it just seems like we get a bad crop up at the very top, and then they stay there, which is the worst part. There's no way to get rid of them.
It's hard to know that answer without knowing more about their union deal and actually more about MLB's evaluation processes. Because if MLB's evaluation processes are like, listen, this umpire isn't as bad as you think he is. He just does things, at inopportune moments, but otherwise he's really good. And we don't know what those processes look like. We don't know the answers.
Yep.
So it's hard to say whether MLB thinks they're fine or they're not as bad as we think they are, or if the union is like the union contract is just like you can't get rid of any umpire ever for any reason. I know that's what a lot of people think is happening, is that the umpire union is just extremely powerful, which strikes me as very odd.
Yeah.
Why the umpire union would be that powerful. But there's plenty of other things that could be going on there, I think.
Yeah, agreed. There's so many factors that aren't public information, or frankly, it takes someone of a far higher IQ to understand than myself. Jeremy, I did skip over a Royals related point that you brought up. So we had Dan Zimborski on the podcast in the off season, and he had a very important 2 month update to his Zips projections, and you tweeted about it today. So why should folks care about this update?
So he basically ran his Zips projections again. He ran them during the preseason. He ran them again based on the 2 months of baseball we've seen this year. The bad news is the Royals are still projected to finish third in the division. However, that said, they went from a 73 win projection in the preseason projection to 86.
Ooh.
They have gained 13 wins with their first 2 months of play, according to the Zips projection system, which is a pretty good projection system. Its stuff bears out pretty well. And then the other big thing that I got out of that was that the Royals went from like a 12% playoff projection in the preseason to a 53% playoff projection. 53% is not great, but it's better than a coin flip. So the Royals are the Zip says, yeah, they're not as good as they've been playing, but they're better than we thought they were.
And yeah, we'll put some numbers to that. 13 wins. That is just a massive jump, isn't it, Jeremy? Like
that's a massive jump from season to season, much less from 2 months of play in a projection.
Yeah. I do want to dive in later on about like some of the individual player projection updates, because like I glanced over Garrett Hampson's projections for the rest of the season, and yeah, like he has some pretty abysmal projections for Garrett Hampson moving forward. I don't know, man. Like if you're not bought in now, go look at numbers like that and just, this isn't homerism. This is simple mathematics saying the Royals are good.
Yeah, and my argument is, yeah, you think the Royals will be bad later. Cool. They're good now. Yeah. Watch them now. You can stop watching later. It's fine.
Why be a cynic about baseball?
You say you're a baseball fan. They're playing good baseball. Watch some baseball. Watch some good baseball while you can. I mean, if they're going to be bad later, then you don't want to watch later. You better watch now.
Exactly. You can't control it either way. Your hate and discontent while they're winning isn't going to cause them to lose later on. Okay,
exactly.
It's just warping your individual view on Kansas City Royals baseball. Speaking of a new view on baseball, another big headline today was some new stats that we got. Not some new stats, I would say, some old stats joining the MLB database. So if y'all were unaware, we are at the end of a 3.5-year process to integrate the Negro League statistics into Major League Baseball's official record. Now, I get it. You were able to go and look up these statistics for many years. Like you were able to go to Baseball Reference and pull them up, or Fangraphs even, and pull them up. But there was always a little asterisk. It was like, hey, those aren't Major League Baseball stats. They're their own thing. Now they are official MLB statistics. And Jeremy, you were not exaggerating when you said before we started recording this that Josh Gibson is on the top of so many leaderboards now. I'm looking at this. He not only holds the top spot in single season OPS, he holds the second spot as well. 6 years apart, those two seasons. In 1937, he ended with a 1.474 OPS, which is absolutely bananas and a good bit ahead of Barry Bonds' mark from 2004. Jeremy, one of the very frustrating parts of this process is the whataboutisms that have come across with this. Like I was scrolling on social media looking for that because I felt like, you know what, am I curating my social media feed a little too much? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. Sure enough, all it took was going to Facebook and looking down in the comments and, oh, what about Ichiro's Japanese stats? Maybe we should include those now too. Like, no, that's apples
I
and
mean, I
oranges.
wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't hate it. You can certainly say his professional statistics because that was professional baseball. But the difference between that and the Negro Leagues, in my opinion, is the guys who were playing in the Negro Leagues were playing at the highest level available to them. Okay, they were kept out with some exclusionary practices. I saw the word in my head, but my tongue went exclusionary practices.
Exclusionary?
Is that the word?
I'm pretty sure that's the word.
Gosh, dang it, I was close.
You were close. I was gonna let it go, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna go repronounce it. I'm like, well,
thank you though, because I need to learn and grow.
That's the thing right there, is that they didn't have a choice in the matter. They would have preferred to play in the major leagues, guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely to argue that, oh well, Josh Gibson never faced a white pitcher, so they shouldn't count. Well, Babe Ruth never faced a black pitcher, so maybe his stats should count. You know what I'm saying? And the other argument I think I've seen is that Josh Gibson, the Negro Leagues didn't play 162 game seasons. They weren't 162 back then. I don't remember how long the season was in the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
Is it 152 yet? I don't remember.
Truthfully, I can't remember either. Sorry.
Yeah. So, the MLB seasons were longer than the official Negro League seasons. But do we discount the stats that were earned in 2020 because that was a 60-game season? We do not. And the thing is that a lot of their stats, a lot of their games didn't get counted in the official league stats because they would do a lot of barnstorming as they went, from city to city to play their league games. So they would play a lot of baseball. Apparently, according to some accounts I've seen, 3-4 games a day, sometimes not even in the same place. That's a lot of baseball to play. And then to still go out there and put up these stats, pretty impressive.
Yeah. The one and only Kansas City Monarchs legend, Satchel Paige, is joining the leaderboards with his season-long 1.01 ERA, sitting as the third best in baseball now.
That makes me super happy because he, Satchel Paige did get a couple years in the big leagues, or at least a few games across a couple of years. But he was well past his prime by then. So to see him get his due with those Negro League stats that he had earned with his exceptionally talented pitching. He, that's the other thing is Josh Gibson faced some not so good players that maybe he would have faced better ones if he'd been able to play in the big leagues. But he also faced Satchel Paige, and nobody else of the era had to face Satchel Paige. None of the white guys did, so they had things easier too. It's all lost in the wash, is what I'm trying to say. Is that maybe some guys could have faced tougher competition, but maybe they could have faced worse competition. It is what it is. Those guys played the highest level of baseball, as you mentioned, Jacob, that was available to them, and it was a crime that MLB kept them out. So it's a good thing that MLB is now counting those stats.
Yep, short of a time machine, this is the best. This is the best way forward regarding this. I think it is, and I'm interested to see. Okay, what are people going to do with these numbers, with these names joining some of the leaderboards, and also just folks, or not folks, just individual players gaining more on their statistics. So like Satchel Paige, if you look at his MLB stat line, it's not that good. It's not amazing. Like
he was in his 40s and 50s when he was pitching in the MLB.
Exactly. So like one point that I saw is his win total went from 28 to 124. Like I get it. I'm not a huge fan of the pitcher win, but that was a big thing back then. And so it's very cool to see some of these folks. They're going to have a better playing resume because it's not just their Negro Leagues stats and then their Major League Baseball stats. It is just one thing.
Yep.
They keep going. All right, Jeremy. I think that was all I had for today. Is there anything I'm missing?
I can't think of anything.
Okay,
We
well,
should have written it down in our show notes, probably.
well, you know what? I said chaos, right? I said
You did say chaos.
let's get chaotic, chaotic. No, okay. All right. So
Who do the Royals play after the Twins? Do you remember?
Oh, well, it's still so they're still in their like 20 game set where they're all playing against playoff teams. I do recall that. Here, let me pull up their schedule because I haven't quite still too focused on the Twins right now, Jeremy. They are going back home to face off against the Padres of San
And then the
Diego.
Guardians after that, right?
Yeah, they're finally the first set against the Guardians. It's been a while.
That's a series that they need more than this Twins series.
Yeah.
Because the Twins have found ways to lose against other people. The Twins are also on their own hot streak right now. They've won 6 of their last 7 or 7 of their last 8 or something like that.
Pretty
so
good.
You hit them at a bad time. But the Royals got to be able to go in there and take some from the Guardians if they want to have a shot at this division.
Mm-hmm. So we will keep a good eye on that. And also you can keep a good eye on the writing over at Royals Review that we'll be talking about that as well. All right, Jeremy, here's what I almost forgot. I almost forgot to go to our Spotify Q&A response.
Oh, don't forget that.
I know, right?
It's the best part of the episode.
Hey.
When we get to hear from someone other than us.
True. So if y'all are unaware or listening for the first time, you can head on over to Spotify and check out our polls and our question and answers over there. And if you respond to the question, we read your response on air. And last go around, a lot of questions. Thank you all for putting them in. And I just left a simple thanks for all the questions. If you have a follow-up, leave it below. Wanted to see what folks gave us. So Nash Fan Sam said, with the Royals often being mentioned needing to acquire some bullpen help, as a fellow Royals fan, I'm trying to think of where they have the depth that they can trade away. Jeremy, I mean, you talked about it earlier on in this episode. Things are pretty shallow around the organization. So there's not a lot of margin for error right now.
So where they're going to have to get their bullpen help is where they've been getting their bullpen help. Who are their 2 best relievers this year, Jacob?
Well, let's see here. James MacArthur is one, and John Schreiber is their other one.
And how did they get those 2 guys?
Well,
they traded away unheralded minor league players for them.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably what they're going to have to keep doing is find people who are like, yeah, this reliever is good, or we can't figure out how to get this reliever good. We'll take one of your random prospects that probably isn't going to be anything, one of your lottery tickets, and you can have a reliever and see what happens. That is something that I think we're going to see a lot of, especially closer to the trade deadline. That's very similar to the Jose Cuas for Nelson Velasquez trade that the Royals made that has not worked out for the Cubs nearly as well.
Believe it or not.
So the Royals need to do trades like those, but better than the Cubs did, and at least as well as they have. And that's the only thing is that James MacArthur and John Schreiber have contributed to this bullpen not striking out enough guys. They've got to find strikeouts somewhere, which might mean they might have to trade somebody real. So at that point, you might be looking at a Nick Prado. You might be looking, will Nick Prado get you anything big? No, but he might get you a rental on a 1-year reliever who can strike some guys out.
And that's, you know what, we're at the point where I don't think the Royals are going to settle for being ahead of schedule. I think give it another month, as Josh Vernier loves to say, maintain through May. Well, they've done so much more than maintain through May right now. And they need to approach June and July as saying, okay, where can we get better to load up for September and October? I think that's where they need to be looking at right now. And you know what? I'm not expecting them to be in on major players like Mason Miller, but maybe some other guys on the Athletics, maybe some other guys with the Marlins, some of these clear sellers is where the Royals need to be looking at for some help. Royal Rupert says, thanks for the great answer to my question. You guys are the best. Thank you, Rupert. Which starter do you think will be the first to throw a no-hitter this year? And I imagine this is in response to Michael Wacha's, is it happening? I'm going to take the cop-out answer from you, Jeremy, and I'm going to say Seth Lugo. I think if anyone has a chance, it is Seth Lugo because of his expansive pitch arsenal and just how he tunnels and how he controls each individual plate appearance. And I'm so very glad that we get to watch him tonight. Is there anyone else that you think could do it?
So for a while, I thought Cole Reagans might be able to pull it off, and it's possible, but generally he doesn't. He throws too many pitches to probably pitch a complete game. But the other guy who's been pitching pretty efficiently is the guy who was pitching pretty deep with the perfect game the other night, as you mentioned, Michael Wacha. So I would guess he's your second best shot at a no-hitter. Really, the best shot is probably a combined no-hitter, maybe with Reagans and some other guys, or Lugo and a couple other guys.
You know what? I was looking back at more of the old Royals stuff, and David Lesky also pointed this out. So thank you for that. Please go follow his work. But talking about how at this time last year, we were trying to spin a near combined no-hitter from Mike Myers into something. The Royals have something in Mike Myers. Yeah, no.
And Josh Staumont, wasn't he the other one that was in that? Yeah.
That's who it was. So I'm glad we're not at that point, and that we have a few legitimate, hey, this guy could go 9 innings and pitch a gem. So we'll see if that happens. I would be very, very surprised, but very, very happy if it does. Aaron Bailey asks, give your realistic idea of who we can/would trade and targets we'd be looking at, maybe at 2 ideal scenarios. So Aaron, I will say this. Jeremy and I didn't prepare for this. Not gonna lie to you. I do in the near future want to have a full episode where this is what we devote our time to. So, Jeremy, give me a position that you at least want to see the Royals invest trade focus into.
I'll give you 2, and I think they're the 2 everyone thinks of immediately: relievers and outfielders.
Okay.
I mean, the bullpen isn't bad, but they need to add some strikeouts into it.
Yeah.
And then the outfield, we need one consistent hitter or a designated hitter. And again, I think the Royals have some opportunities, especially in the reliever market, where the guys aren't as expensive. I mean, you're not going to get Mason Miller. Okay. Yeah. He's going to be expensive, but there are going to be guys at the tier below him that are quite good still that the Royals should be able to get for very little. Scott Barlow came over for a couple of prospects, even though he was kind of known as a guy who could really get it done, even though he wasn't last year. Yeah. Relievers just don't pull as much as they used to. It used to be you would have to trade multiple talented guys to get a reliever, and now it's one guy who is big league ready, but probably a 4A guy, and then a lottery ticket, and that'll get you a decent reliever. And as far as the outfield help, the problem with the outfield help is we've already got the kind of guys that you could acquire at that level.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to trade something a little bit more painful if they want to add an impact bat, which is where I come back with maybe it's Brady Singer. Yeah. Maybe, I hate to say this, maybe it's Chris Bubich.
Maybe.
They might have to trade. I could see a scenario where they have to trade that Mazzucato.
Yeah.
They're going to have to trade somebody of real value if they want a real bat to fill out this lineup. And the thing is that I think it's going to be worth it, because I think a real bat to fill out this lineup puts them in the playoffs. And I think it gives them a real opportunity to do some damage there. Whereas right now they're kind of on, I know they're a few games ahead of a playoff spot, but they've got enough holes if injuries keep coming up, like Massey and Pasquantino, or if those guys have to stay out longer than we're hoping, that this could become a serious issue for them, and make it much more difficult. Then they'd be squeaking into the playoffs and then immediately booted out, which is better than alternatives. I'd rather watch some playoff baseball than no playoff baseball. But give yourselves a chance to get in there and do some damage.
Exactly. I was sitting here racking my brain about like who they could or would trade away. And I think Mazzucato, you hit that on the head. He's a higher Royals prospect of a picked by a former regime. Maybe he doesn't fit this current pipeline's mold that they're looking for. I could see them, do they want to move on from Carter Jensen? He's a guy in high A who is performing very, very well. And I think he has value. I think he should be in Double A, and his plate approach is great. I'm still of the mindset if they needed to make not a sooner deal or a quicker deal. I think Dairon Blanco would be he is going to have value to another contender. So maybe we've seen more of those trades.
The Mariners love to trade their relievers.
Yeah.
For pieces that will help them in the playoffs, assuming they can get there with the relievers that they have left. So
that assumption is interesting. I will say the trade this past week with the Phillies was like their third trade of note in the past calendar year with the Phillies and the Royals. So I am going to spend a little bit of time in looking at Phillies targets, maybe lower in the system the Royals could look at. I don't know. We'll see what we can unearth there. So, Aaron, sorry for the non-answer, sort of, kind of, not really, but we'll be talking about that later on once that trade deadline approaches.
One team I would really want you to look at, especially as far as outfield help, would be the Cardinals.
Yeah, I
think they could be sellers, and they usually just have so many outfielders who can at least hit a little bit. That they might be willing to trade one away, and they usually are like, yeah, we could take your cast off garbage and turn that into a real good player. So that's one place I want to look real hard.
And I'll show my cards here. I'm going to spin the trade machine up as much as I can, and I'm going to try and look at the Baltimore Orioles system because I think there are some outfielders there that the Royals could try to pull because they're pretty deep in outfield right now. And the guy that comes to my mind is Heston Kierstad, who is still in Norfolk right now, although he should be getting some every day.
But what do the Orioles want from the Royals?
That's the question. That's the question. So I'm just throwing out names right there. I don't know if it's a good fit or not. That's why we got to do our research and have an episode later on. And then our last Spotify Q&A responses from Christopher Palmer saying the boys are playing some ball. 2014 vibes in full effect. Even ugly games are wins. Is it safe to say the hunt for Blue October is on? Do they need to make a move in the pen or outfield first? Christopher, I do want to say I think we addressed both your questions already. Yes, the hunt for Blue October is still on. And if you had to pick one, Jeremy, for them to trade for, and they don't get to make any other trades, would they make a trade to address the bullpen or the outfield?
The outfield. It's got to be. The rotation has been so good that it can cover a lot of the holes in the bullpen. Not all of them, but a lot. And they really got to have one. As I've kind of said before, the lineup looks completely different when it goes 6 deep. And even when Vinny and Massey comes back, that's 5.
Yep.
So you really need one more guy.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more there. Because I still believe in these internal options to help out the bullpen.
That's the other thing is there are still other relievers in the minor leagues that they could try out and maybe find some success with. There's just nobody in the outfield except for Gavin Cross, who is not close to ready.
No, he's not. And I will make this clear for anyone out there who didn't read my column this weekend on Kings of Kaufman. I'm out on Drew Waters. Okay, I'm out on him. All right, I did a side-by-side comparison between him and Nate Eaton. at least with their stats this year. And Nate Eaton has the edge in almost every single category. So Drew Waters is not going to be the surefire solution that so many folks think he will be. I'm just going to make
and to be clear, I would love to see Waters and Eaton demote Velasquez and Melendez. Let's see them both. Fine, but they're not the answers. They're sticking your hole in the dike and waiting for someone to come help.
Yeah. And I do want to point this out, Jeremy. I was told that, or I was pointed out, it was pointed out to me that Melendez has only had 9 ABs in the past week. So they're slowly rolling him out.
Yeah. Quatrero has absolutely lost faith in him.
Yeah.
And if Quatrero doesn't have any faith in him, he doesn't have any value on this team. He's not a defensive replacement. He's not a pinch runner. He's not a pinch hitter. Send him to the minors. Let him see if he can figure something out. There's no reason to keep him on this big league roster.
Correct. All right, Jeremy, we are running long as always. Let's go ahead and get to the Royals reviews. Jeremy, I'll go and start us off with a quick one. I got home. It was just one of those days where I was really frustrated and feeling burnt out from work. Honey and I went down to the little sandbar and walked a couple of the dogs, and it was nice. And she wanted to watch a Disney movie, and she let me pick, thankfully. And I picked Inside Out, which I hadn't seen in a few years.
I love that movie.
And you know what? I got reminded of so much. Like, there's a lot of good talking points. There's some good depth in that movie, and I feel like I appreciate it a lot more right now. So if you haven't watched that movie recently, please go check it out. If you're unaware of what Inside Out is completely, it is a story about the emotions within people and some of the journeys and how they interact with one another and why you can't have one without the other and what that emotional imbalance looks like within this story. So go check it out before the sequel comes out, because I'm sure you're going to see it all over later on this summer. Jeremy, on to you.
I had one ready to go, and I completely forgot it.
Okay.
So what I'm going to give you is instead Dune Part 2.
Okay.
I watched that. I got tired of the game Monday, and I was like, I cannot sit here and watch the Royals fritter this one away. I unfortunately that meant I missed the almost comeback, but so I watched Dune Part 2, and as far as music and cinematography and direction, it absolutely holds up to the first part of Dune. Where it falls flat for me is in the story, which checks out because that's how the first Dune book went for me. Was I was really invested in the first half of the book, and in the second half I was like, I don't care anymore. So in that way, it's a very authentic adaptation.
Yeah.
And again, the cinematography is just gorgeous. The sound design is amazing. It's fantastic. So if you love the art of making movies, it's definitely worth watching, especially on a big screen TV with a good sound system. I know that my friend who's a huge movie buff said everyone needed to see it in theaters if they could. IMAX would be best, and that's accurate. Obviously not an option anymore. So get the best viewing experience you can. Check it out. And again, the story thing, that's personal to me. I think I'm not going to say the story is bad. It's just not one, the way the story goes in the second half, it's just not personally fulfilling or interesting to me. So I just kind of disconnect from it.
There you go.
But yeah, great art otherwise.
Okay. I like it. I'm pretty sure both those movies are streaming on HBO Max, right?
That is correct.
All right. Well, if you want to devote about 6 hours of your day to watching 2 movies,
So long.
They're very, very long. You can go check that out. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm a part of this movement where I'm watching most of the movies at home. I'm not holding 2.5 hour attention spans to a movie. Give me some of these old school movies where it's like an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. Give me some shorter ones. I like it.
I got to tell you, even when the movies were an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, my bladder was screaming. So I have not been to a movie theater since 2019.
Really?
And I don't particularly miss it. I love being able to pause the movie and go to the bathroom or, whatever else I want to do. So that's just how I do movies now.
All right. All righty, y'all. We are going to go ahead and get on out of here, get some dinner, then settle in to watch the Royals go for the series split now against the Minnesota Twins.
If got to win today, or else this will be the second series where they went into the final game, potentially having a sweep made against them.
Hopefully we ain't looking at that situation here in a little bit. If you want to hear about Thursday's series finale from me, make sure to check out the Royals recaps, which will be in this podcast feed as well. If you want to follow along with us on social media, see more of our Royals takes, the best place to do that is on X. Our links are down in the podcast description below, so check them out. And once again, he is Jeremy Greco. I'm Jake Milham. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, go Royals!